Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to take a deep dive look into the Mandalorian Season 3 episode titled The Pirate. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Plus, Force Ghost Conversations is now live on Patreon. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Okay, everyone, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And boy, another heavy hitter this week. Am I right, folks? The Mandalorian just continues to keep giving us new goodies and surprises, all the stuff that we could really want from an incredible series thus far, and really expanding the world of Star Wars and bringing things into such that we have never seen before. I mean, you probably know what I'm talking about already for those that have seen the episode, but we'll get into that, of course, on the other side of this quick little news segment here before we head into our deep dive conversation. But frankly, because Celebration is next week, we're less than a week out from Star Wars Celebration at this point, folks, starting next Friday, April 7th. There's not going to be a whole lot of Star Wars news right now. They're going to wait to announce so many new things leading up to the convention or at the convention as opposed to leading up to it, right? So there's so much to probably talk about in our next couple of episodes over the following weeks. But the real big thing that I want to highlight first and foremost is that the Bad Batch Season 2 has concluded. And of course, we'll be talking about that on our Wednesday release with Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations, putting a nice wrap up to that line of content there. But if you haven't seen that, go check it out now. Go rewatch the entire season or watch the season if you've been waiting to binge it all at once. It was really great. I loved it so much, and it was such a brilliant companion to The Mandalorian at the same time. I don't think you can really rival how great that they were able to line up both those stories. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but they worked. It worked very well in tandem with one another. The animation was always superb and spectacular. I think they just did an excellent job overall with the season. So be sure to go check out all those, and obviously go check out our episodes again about those episodes. Go rewatch them, re-listen to our episodes, see if we missed anything, or perhaps didn't talk about things that you thought were super important. Perhaps, I don't know. And then hit us up on our social channels. We'd love to continue the conversation with you all in regards to that, because the Bad Batch never stops here. The Bad Batch, I should say, it never stops. Also, because Celebration is fast approaching, I did want to give another shout out to CouchCon, the Star Wars Celebration at Home festivities that we're kind of spearheading here at Force Ghost Conversations over the next couple of days during Star Wars Celebration. So starting that Thursday, April 6th, we will be doing some various things all the way through Monday, April 10th. So obviously all of the information that you can search for all that's going to be on our social media channels, because we're going to be available on all that for everybody. But basically it'll start that Thursday, April 6th at 6:30 p.m. I'm going to be doing a Instagram live Ask Me Anything. So follow our Instagram account or hop into Instagram around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on that Thursday, where you can join the live chat there and send me some questions. We can just talk about anything in regards to Star Wars, Willow, Indiana Jones, let's just have some good fun, speculate responsibly, look forward to the next coming days of celebration. Of course, I'll be doing that live from Gordon Ramsay's Fish and Chips, which is a restaurant here in the Washington, D.C. area that I've really come to enjoy over the last year as it just opened up. That, of course, sells a very prominent English dish, fish and chips. Of course, London is where the host site for Star Wars Celebration is. So I just kind of wanted to get into the celebration mood. Maybe you all can have an appropriate English inspired dish as well to celebrate and get in kind of in the celebration mood. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So that's what we're doing Thursday night. Feel free to hop in and join. I'll probably do that for about a half hour or as long as I'm still receiving questions. Who knows? It's just going to be a lot of fun, I think, overall. Then that Friday, it starts our live tweeting of the live celebration stream. So, of course, Star Wars will be streaming um, throughout the 4 days of the convention with their live stage where they're going to be doing various interviews. And I hope they're going to be showing some panels during that time. For those of us that are at home that aren't able to see all the or be in person for all the fun stuff. So I'll be live tweeting that. So just follow us on our Twitter page, Force Goes Pod, for all those updates. And then in the evening of Friday, and we'll be doing this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday throughout the weekend at 6:00 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be doing live stream recaps of the news of the day, basically, and just kind of reacting to it all, speculating about it, talking about it. Maybe we'll have a guest or two on. Who knows? Sky's the limit at this point. We'll be doing all that on our YouTube page. So just search for Force Ghost Conversations and you'll find us. Make sure you're subscribed to there. You don't want to miss out on all that for sure. So, yep, that'll be on our YouTube page Friday, Saturday, Sunday. At 6:00 Eastern time. And then at 8:00 Eastern time on Friday and Saturday, we'll be doing 2 watch alongs. So for those of us that are at home that want to kind of have some more camaraderie, the best way I can really think about doing that is just some live tweeting watch alongs. So Friday night at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time, I will at least be starting The Mandalorian Chapter 1, The Mandalorian as is appropriately called. And we'll be live tweeting my experience to that with the hashtag Mando Watch Along. And I encourage all of you to pull up your Disney Plus at the same time and tweet along as well so we can engage in the conversation. And I just feel like we're amongst each other's in the same room watching this great piece of Star Wars television and just appreciating all the great goodness and celebrating it. That's really what celebration is about at the end of the day. Then lastly, on Saturday, we will be doing a anniversary watch party again for Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year in 2023. That's, of course, the same day as the 40th anniversary panel at Star Wars Celebration. So I imagine there'll be a lot of fun goodness from that panel on display at the live stream and hopefully during the convention itself. Maybe we get to see that panel itself, which I think will be a lot of fun. And yeah, just whatever you got. If you got a 4K, a Blu-ray, DVD, VHS, you pull it up on Disney Plus, or you own a digital copy, VHS, Betamax, what have you. We're just going to do, start it at 8:00 p.m. and tweet along with us too. We're going to use the hashtag ROTJ watch along. And we can engage in fun conversations talking about the final film of the original trilogy and geeking out about all the fun stuff that takes place during that film and what it means for Star Wars and the power of it all. So that's really what we've got going on for CouchCon. Again, more details are on our Twitter page, Instagram page, our Facebook page. All that fun stuff is where you can find out more information about CouchCon, all the times of everything, what we're actually doing each and every day. All that's available there. So just be sure to hit up all of our social media channels for all that. And on the other side of this very short break here, we'll be back with our discussion about The Mandalorian, the new episode titled The Pirate. All right, everybody, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And boy, I mean, this was a great episode of The Mandalorian, folks. Lots of action, lots of world building for just general New Republic adventures. And there's some pretty There's at least one very big surprise in this episode that I am so thrilled to just chat up with each and every one of you on here because, whoo, doggy, I don't want to spoil it for anybody. So let's just get it all out of the way here, folks. If you haven't seen this episode of The Mandalorian, chapter 21, I believe, The Pirate, what are you doing? Pause this episode now. Go to your Disney Plus account. Watch it. Watch the rest of the season 2. Watch Star Wars Rebels. All that stuff. And then come right back to this moment in time. You've been forewarned. It is time, of course, to talk about the Zeb Aurelios in the room. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen? Zeb is finally a character in live action Star Wars. I I I had a feeling maybe we'd come to this point one day, but actually seeing is believing, folks. And we've seen this character, this Lasat, this wonderful aspect of the Rebels crew now in live action. And he's, of course, with Carson Teva on Adelphi Station. What does all that mean? There's so much world building just in that little bit here. What's he doing? Why is he with the New Republic at this point? Where's Hera? These, of course, are questions we'll probably get with the Ahsoka series. So just a little bit of a tease here when it comes to all that, folks. We're getting the sense of this camaraderie, this connected storytelling that they're doing in this post-Return the Jedi world here through The Mandalorian and its various associated properties. Now, I'd imagine all of you folks at home are like, yeah, but The Mandalorian wasn't really focused a lot in this episode. And that's a fair statement. But again, we go back to what we've said earlier, whether it be the convert episode of this story, or even going back to the Book of Boba Fett. Just because the story is called X doesn't mean that the storytellers are shoehorned into only utilizing plots with that character, or keeping them from doing other stories to incorporate other characters into the grand narrative that affect the main character at the end of the day and their overall story arc. Let's look back again at the Book of Boba Fett, for example, right? There are those 2 climactic episodes where Boba Fett only appears for maybe 5 minutes. And some would argue those are the best of the Book of Boba Fett. And that's fine. That's your opinion. You're allowed to have that. But if the Mandalorian just showed up and you had no clue about all that happened beforehand, you'd be a little mad as a fan, right? They could have easily cut those 2 episodes out and then just had Grogu show up and you'd have all these questions about it. And maybe they do a flashback sequence in The Mandalorian season 3 to it all. But then that's just a lot of questions that they need to add there. Just tell it linearly, right? Or make it a point. But you gotta just trust the creators at some point, folks. And that's what I'm doing here. I have full faith in what Filoni and Favreau are doing over there. I think they're phenomenal storytellers, and very excited to see what is all coming together here with Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and of course Ahsoka, which is slated to come out in 2023 at some point. And we probably will get some more information about Ahsoka, maybe a release date and time, at least a trailer, I imagine, at Star Wars Celebration next week. I believe it is the Saturday panel, which is the Ahsoka panel, or maybe it's Sunday. No, I think Sunday is the villains panel. Monday is Bad Batch. Saturday, I'm almost 100% sure is Ahsoka, whereas the Friday is the Lucasfilm Showcase panel, which will be really great. Again, we'll be on Twitter, live tweeting throughout the entire stream. So get ready for all that fun stuff and goodness coming your way. But yeah, Zeb is finally in live action. Of course, he's voiced by the great Steve Blum, who voiced the character during Star Wars Rebels, and I just about lost it when I saw that character appear on live screen. I was just like, I was grabbing Mrs. Forrest Ghost Conversations beside me. I was grabbing on her shoulder. I was just like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? Can you see what we are literally seeing in front of us? Worlds are colliding, folks, and just embrace the journey and the fun ride that we're gonna have with this all. I mean, Zeb is literally on screen for maybe 30 seconds. He just has a quick note with Carson Teva about how he's pulling for Navarro. I'm pulling for Navarro too. And this is the sky's the limit. Again, I talk about this with folks about how I love that I'm so enthralled and in deep in Star Wars canon and the minutiae of it all. I love reading Star Wars books. I love reading Star Wars comics. I love knowing about the world and characters and adding aspects to their being and their character that allows me to get a full fleshed out viewpoint of who they are. I mean, Saw Gerrera, Rebel Rising is so great at building out him and his role and leading up to the events of Rogue One and how they've been able to just streamline all of that storytelling for that character within that great book there. I highly recommend it. Again, Ahsoka is another great example of continuing the aspects of the character through a book while continuing her story through other mediums as well. But the thing that I always get from people is, all right, well, those characters will never appear in a live action sense, or those are different levels of canon. And you can have those opinions and viewpoints there. I'm sure there's an argument to be made and all that. But when I see things like that, it just gives me such gratification and joy that in a way makes it matter in some sense, right? It's like a nice like high five to those people that spend their time being involved in this world so much, which I imagine a lot of you probably are, our listeners at home. It's just so fun. It's so fun at the end of the day, and I'm just geeking out so much just about thinking about that again, and the prospects of what it could mean for the future too. And that's where I was kind of getting at with my previous point here before I got a little sidetracked. Um, the sky's the limit, frankly, for characters and all that. If the character fits a story, I have full faith and trust in the Lucasfilm creative team and the story group, etc., that they're going to pull characters that fit a certain, bill or narrative that can help move things along. That's what they're there for. Saw Gerrera in Rogue One and Saw Gerrera in Star Wars Rebels as a great piece of synergy there is one of the exact pieces that I'm talking about here. A character that was born in the Clone Wars, not necessarily born physically in the Clone Wars, but created for the Clone Wars animated series, then gets a promotion to being in Rogue One as one of the main characters and one of the driving forces of the rebellion all at this point. And now gets to be in Star Wars television, both in Andor plus Rebels, a little bit in Bad Batch. That's what we can get. This great synergy of storytelling across multiple mediums, and characters aren't just shoehorned into being, all right, well, this is a movie character. Well, this is a TV show character. Well, this is a book character. It doesn't matter. All Star Wars is Star Wars, and it's all valid. And it gives credence and validation to all that great stuff, which I'm so thrilled and proud to be a part of this fandom and community that celebrates that and gives a voice to characters and peoples of different backgrounds and colors and perspectives to allow them to share various stories in this universe. I love it, and I hope you are at home too. I will also say the last point that I have on the Zeb note here is he looks great. Obviously, he's a CGI character, but for the budget of The Mandalorian and what they were doing, it didn't feel out of place to me. He's only on screen for a quick 30 seconds here, 40 seconds, a minute, but throughout all of it, it seals the scene and it looks incredible. There's no lag between what the character looked like in animation versus that. So I'm thrilled at the prospects of seeing what like a Hera could look like in live action as well. Maybe a Jason Solo too. Who knows? All this stuff is on the table as we get closer to Ahsoka time, and really with this episode coming out when it is, I don't think it was without chance that the Ahsoka panel comes out next week, and the timing of it could just be absolutely perfect. I mean, of course, there'll be another Mando episode coming out the Wednesday before Celebration. So who knows what's going to take place in that one? I know we're at the tail end of the season here, so get ready for that, folks. We're heading in full force towards the end here. So a little bit about the episode itself. We're back on Navarro. If you remember from episode 1 of season 3, Pirate Captain Gorian Shard was not thrilled that Navarro wasn't giving in to his demands. The Mandalorian defended Navarro a bit, along with Grief Karga. Vane and his group of pirates were trying to infiltrate a school, which was formerly a bar for them, and they were going to turn it to that whatever they wanted it to be, a place of debauchery, a place of sin, if you will. And then they got defeated there. A lot of them died. Vane was the only one left alive to kind of tell the tale that Navarro is off the table for the pirate guild anymore. Not the pirate guild, but uh, the pirate empire. I think is exactly what they would say, um, or the pirate clan. One of them. But he goes back, of course, to Captain Gordon Shard, which again is one of my favorite things in Star Wars now. I'm looking for that action figure like no tomorrow. It's like a Swamp Thing, Man Thing mix where he just looks like a bunch of spaghetti, or not spaghetti, but salad. So that's like a salad monster creature, almost like Pizza the Hut, if you will, from Spaceballs. But it's literally salad or seaweed or kale, something like that. I mean, you could have almost called him Captain Kale. And I think that would be very appropriately dubbed as a funny bit of Star Wars lore, if you would. But that's yeah, that's where we're at here. And the Mandalorian takes out a few of the ships with his N1 starfighter, the cruiser that Captain Gorian Shard utilizes is some of the guns are taken out by Mando. So obviously, this is not going to please Pirate Captain Gorian Shard all too well, and he goes to Navarro to make a statement, and he utilizes his guns on his capital ship there to rain down fire on um, the folks of Navarro, kind of similar to how in Endgame Thanos does the same with his main ship, taking out a lot of his own folks, his own soldiers, as well as none of the Avengers get hit at all, as far as I understand. Probably some Wakandan soldiers and those of the Sanctum from Doctor Strange world. Uh, yeah, they nothing really happens to our main characters until the end in that movie. But it is a sight that was reminiscent to me of that, especially with how the guns looked on the capital ship, of course. But they have they fully take out a lot of Navarro. They bring it down to ashes. They force Grief Karga and all the folks to go outside of the city, kind of find shelter where they can. They're going to exile, if you will. And in doing so, he reaches out to Carson Teva. He's like, "We need New Republic support. We request it." Carson Teva, I mean, he's great. He's kind of piecing all these dots here and connecting all of that throughout the Mandalorian so far. I mean, you recall him from season 2, where he helped Din Djarin in a few instances with some run-ins, especially with the spiders. You may recall. I believe he was a little bit in the Book of Boba Fett. Um, But I'm glad to see him continuing his story here, and we see him request to a new character. Tim Meadows is the actor who I always know from Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, who's Colonel Tuttle, who appears to be in the same vicinity, perhaps, that um, Dr. Pershing was with his administrative duties in logging and cataloging and deleting data files from the Empire. He makes the formal request there. Aaliyah Kane is also involved in this conversation, which really brings questions about what her role is after the convert episode. Is she with the Empire? Is she with the Mandalorian? Not necessarily the Mandalorian, but is she fully with the New Republic? These are great questions, and I'm getting the sense that this is a little bit of a plot point that they would have continued if the show Rangers of the New Republic took off. Does that make sense to you folks? Are you getting the feeling at home too about this? I'm kind of thinking that perhaps that they would show the cracks of the New Republic throughout that series. Which it very well may be the case. I don't believe that show is moving forward anymore officially. They've not officially said that. I believe in an official capacity. I think in interviews they said, "Well, we've plot points and all that throughout there." So this is probably one of those in action here. And Carson Teva is especially connecting dots here. We saw him in season 2 of The Mandalorian kind of recruit Cara Dune. And others, he's like, something's going on out here, and no one's really paying attention to it, and I'm just going to raise flags to it. But honestly, that's really what leads to the downfall of the New Republic eventually. The demilitarization of it, the going back to bureaucracy, the amnesty program probably doesn't help to a certain point. And it allows for the First Order in the unknown regions to regroup, grow their ranks again, and we eventually get to where we're at in Episode 7, The Force Awakens, with the destruction of Hosnian Prime and the New Republic, leaving the galaxy in a state of constant disarray throughout the sequel trilogy. But it was nice seeing Tim Meadows. I always like him as an actor. I think he's got some good comedic chops to him, and of course, Colonel Tuttle is now a fun character to have in Star Wars. Again, Aaliyah Kane. Don't know where she's going, what the angle is in her. They're really lingering on her with some of those shots in this episode where she's kind of looking mischievous, devious. You never know where she's aligning here. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they say that Navarro is not a member world, and they are strapped with resources, and they can't send some ships and planes to and fighter X-wings, Y-wings to go help them out there. So what he does, Carson Teva, the astute Carson Teva, he finds an old friend, the Mandalorian, a person that owes him a kind favor and knows that perhaps he has some dealings on Navarro and has some connections to Grief Karga at the end of it all. He finds it. And of course, the Mandalorians are priding themselves on being very secret. They're a hidden covert on this planet here, wherever that planet is that they're at. They've been for the last couple of episodes of the season here, where there's the pterodactyl monster and the alligator monster that's coming out of the water. I mean, who would want to live on this planet with all these different kaiju beasts that could potentially attack them at any time? It's kind of a great sense of defense, if you will, if you're trying to keep your covert secret. Like, go to a place that people already don't want to go to, that they would never look at for their own safety, if you want to stay hidden. But the great R5D4 is still a Republic hero. You might have heard Pelimoto say it earlier when she's like, "You need a droid." He served in the rebellion, and this is your guy. And he still had connections to Carson Teva, who apparently they served together during the rebellion. And that's how they were able to find the Mandalorian sect there. And through that, he's like, these people need your help. He showed him the message, which I think was the right thing to do. Like, he although he knew that he wasn't in a place that he could make effective change, he put others in the position where they could make a difference in the world. And I think that was great leadership on his part, really recognizing the resources that were available to him and making the best out of a bad situation here. Now, of course, there was some scrutiny about potentially going to fight for Grief Karga and to fight these pirates here. They really had no stake in the game. They also had fought Grief Karga during the first, the third episode of The Mandalorian, and when he's escaping Navarro there in that initial sequence. But it was growth on the Mandalorian's part where they're like, people can change. Grief Karga clearly has changed over the last couple of seasons here in the wake of seeing what happened on Navarro, in the wake of meeting Grogu. He's really a convert, if you will, too, in this sense. And he's a protector of Mandalorian. He's a friend of Mandalorians at this point. It's not the same as it was before. And Navarro is a brand new planet, and he even offered Din Djarin's of a plot of land, which is something that becomes like a home to the Mandalorians at the end of this. It's something they get offered. They have a place that they can live out in the open, to feel the sunshine against their Beskar steel, if you will, which I thought was, pretty funny at the end of the day when they don't. Why that would be a fun point for them when they can't really take their helmets off, amongst others. So they really not going to see a whole lot of sunshine, or if they feel it, maybe it just gets so hot on the armor. I don't know. Anywho, eventually, at the suggested Paz Vizsla, which at the start of his speech, when he had the armorer's hammer, if you will, her forge, when he was talking, I didn't think that he was going to lend his support to fighting on behalf of Grief Karga. I didn't think that was going to happen at all, but he turned a 180 on that one and gave the gusto for the rest of the Mandalorians to go forth and do what they were being asked of, to fight on behalf of a friend, an ally, perhaps, and to save them from total decimation from this pirate group here. Now, of course, there's some great action sequences here in on the fight on Navarro. I really like Paz Vizsla with his kind of Gatling gun blaster, if you will. It's so cool seeing him just kind of walk around. So he he just he has a presence to him when he's walking around on screen, and there's just some authority that comes with that too that I like a lot. And the sound of that Gatling gun blaster is something that sticks with me too. Bo-Katan also is in the fight, and with Din Djarin's help, they take out the capital ship. Vane, of course, from the first episode of The Mandalorian, is a pirate in his own right, and he leaves Captain Gorian Shard to decimation and ruin. I'm pretty sure Gorian Shard is dead, and the pirates won't be coming back to Navarro anytime soon. And they take up Grief Karga's offer to have a great plot of land here from I believe it was from the volcanic uh, ashes and dunes, the magma dunes or whatever, all the way to Bullock Canyon. A great pack of land for them where they can be out in the open, not be afraid to be Mandalorians, to embrace a community and culture and really get a sense of what it is to be Mandalorians once again, instead of living in a cave in a shadow of what they formerly were. No, they get to be back out in the open again. And this sparks a great question that is really later in this episode, which the armor sees the value of Bo-Katan. She sees that she is appreciated and has walked the ways of the creed of this sect of the Mandalore, and she softens her stance. She says, "Take off your helmet," and she does. I was like, "Is this a trap? Is this some bait? Is this like a test? Is she going to take off her helmet here and be like, haha, I got you. I knew you were just kidding around. You didn't really believe this is the way." But no, she uses it as a point where we can retake Mandalore behind Bo-Katan. We don't need the Darksaber. She is a person that walks both worlds. Din Djarin is not. He doesn't want to take his helmet off. He believes in the creed and he's fine with it. And he's also fine with others taking their helmets off at this point. He may not take his helmet off, but he's not, infringing on the rights of others if they don't want to walk that way, which I think is healthy. They were so divided in the times beforehand that that's what led them into disarray. The factions and the warring clans and the civil war amongst each other of ideology. If they can look past that, Mandalore is united again, and they can have a base of operations now by which they can go and reclaim their homeland, their planet. I think this is great. This is really a big step forward for the armorer, and I thought for a second too she might take off her helmet. I thought, oh, that'd have been wild. Maybe everyone can change, but the time will tell. But I'm glad she's backing this horse of Bo-Katan. I've loved her arc over the course of this season. She's gone from person that was literally defeated and deflated on the in that castle there where we met her at the beginning, and she's like, it's all dead, it's all doomed, you ruined everything, to a point where she's being heralded by this group that she was looking upon before with disgust and disdain, and is now being told to go out into the world and find other Mandalorians there so that they can reclaim their homeland and reunite under one banner again. That is very powerful, and that is self-determination at its best, folks, if you ask me. Finally, in the episode, we get this little tease about what is coming up in the future, with Carson Teva investigating a shuttle ship here that is out in the open here, and in wild space, if you will. And we find out that the big thing of this episode, which is a little bit about Moff Gideon. This was Moff Gideon's shuttle that is out on display here. And every person is gone except for Moff Gideon. There are rumors that he didn't go to trial. And evidently, those rumors are true. Yes, Moff Gideon isn't rotting in a New Republic cell right now. And the New Republic didn't want people to know that they lost him. But who took him? It looks like Mandalorians took him. There's some Beskar steel alloy. Now the question begs for the next couple of episodes here, probably, who took him? What Mandalorians took them? Was it Fenrau? Was it another Mandalorian sect that we're going to find out about? Is it some aspect? It maybe is a Death Watch. Is it a resurgent Death Watch out there? I don't know. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this season goes, folks. But that's a great cliffhanger as we are now on the downward trend of season 3. There's only 8 episodes and we've got 5 of them, so we've got 3 to go here as we head into the end of season 3. And frankly, it's been going way too fast, folks. With Bad Batch and that, plus grad school, plus working full time, the time's just been flying. But I've loved coming on the show each and every week to chat with you about this great aspect of Star Wars lore and what it's doing for both Mandalore, for Star Wars overall, for the post Return of the Jedi era, for what it's doing to set up the sequel trilogy. The Mandalorian is doing excellent work, folks. And I can't wait to celebrate it all with you next week, especially Friday, as we, at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, do a watch along live tweeting of the first episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 1, The Mandalorian, of course, as it is appropriately dubbed. So with that, folks, that is all that I had for this week's episode. Of course, we'll be back on Wednesday to discuss the 2-part season finale for The Bad Batch with Mrs. Forsco's Conversations. You don't want to miss out on that one. I can guarantee it's going to be a very effective and emotional episode for all of us. So there's that. Well, again, CouchCon, be sure to hit up all of our social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, for all the details on CouchCon, especially for our YouTube live streams, recaps, our Instagram Ask Me Anything on Thursday night, and of course our watch-alongs on Twitter and our live tweetings of the live streams all throughout the celebration weekend. So all that is coming up here, folks, in the near future, so you don't want to miss out on all of that. Again, a quick plug for our Patreon if you want to support the podcast through additional means aside from just listening and subscribing and tell your friends about us. There is a place where you can do so. For as little as $1 a month, you can get access to a whole ton of Star Wars, not necessarily Star Wars, but Force Ghost Conversations goodies. Of course, we cover all things Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Indiana Jones, Willow, etc. That is the place we'll be having some extra conversations over there, some extra podcasts, some more content, etc. Head on over there and decide if you want to support us at the various tiers offered. We also have a TeePublic store where if you want to showcase your Force Ghost Conversations merchandise on a granular level, you can certainly do that. There are various hoodies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, pillows, phone cases, all that stuff is available on our TeePublic store. They run sales from time to time, so if you want to take advantage of those, usually 35% off across the entire site, be sure to do that. And some of your proceeds go to support the show, and I put it directly back into the podcast to help continue to grow us and to have a more professional semblance of what we're doing here. So I appreciate all of the support for you all. Also, I did want to mention this is our 100th episode, so thanks to everybody for participating in Force Ghost Conversations, for following the show, for listening to our episodes whenever you joined along the train here, for subscribing to our show, for sharing us with your friends, for buying our merchandise, for supporting us on the Patreon. It's been great. I've loved each and every episode, getting to chat with all of you through our social media channels to create this community. I've just been having so much fun, and I can't wait to do 1,000 plus more episodes with you all as I get more free time when grad school concludes, hopefully very soon here. I'm just so thankful for you all, and I would be nothing but just a person behind a microphone if it wasn't for the great community that we've fostered here. So really, I can't thank you all from the bottom of my heart more than anything when it comes to all this. You give me the strength to continue doing this and to persevere. You know, if I ever have a doubts about why I'm doing this, I just think about the great fandom and community that we have on board here for Force Ghost Conversations. So I really thank you all for listening to all of our episodes. Go back and re-listen to all 100 if you would. I would love it. Tell us what you think. Chat us up on our social media channels, and we'll be back on Wednesday with episode 101, talking all about the Bad Batch Season 2 finale. Until then, may the Force be with you, folks, and take care.